Okay. Well, I started in 2000, late 2000. So I started out as a part of a group called Radiance Crew. Yeah. So another local DJ came in and another guy called William. So together with myself, the three of us, Radiance Crew. So till today, about going to be about 12 years now. So I would say quite a long time as well. Yeah. So that was my background. Yeah, my humble beginnings, and basically yeah, the music I play is more of like it's definitely house based. So I mean, I wouldn't categorize my music, but you know, it's somewhere in between. You know, I play anything from house to techno. So yeah, but it's usually a more techy sound. So I mean, people can easily identify with the sound as being tech house probably. Yeah. But I deal with probably, I mean, you can hear anything from house to techno in a set of mine. Yeah.
Okay, sweet. What about yourself, Brendon?
Oh, okay. Now comes the age, right? I'm coming into my 32nd year of DJing actually now, so that leaves a lot of experiences. But to compress it all, I started sort of learning how to mix records in 1980, and went from carrying equipment for mobile discos, you know, to DJing per se. Before that, it was basically just making sort of mixtapes for house parties and stuff that we used to go to, until we actually learned how to put two turntables together and decided to do it on our own for a house party, and that was quite interesting. So I kind of got discovered for the mobile disco from there, and it kind of moved on, but I had to pay my dues in this respect that as a young person hungry and wanting to DJ, I didn't really get to do that much. It was mostly carrying up equipment, setting up equipment for weddings, passing out parades, anything you can think of, right, that people would book a mobile disco for. And watching how the pros at that time, or people, like more experienced DJs, carried out the job of DJing and the whole process of it. So I guess when it came to doing my own set for party, it was a very, very nerve-wracking one. But it was from doing a lot of those parties that I got discovered to play in clubs, and eventually by the Juliana's group, which I then joined after I finished my military service. So if you're talking about that, the list goes on, and this was like in the early 80s, before I started my army, and then after I started my army. So I was actually playing in clubs from 1980, late 81, 82, early 82, just doing the relief slots when the main DJs would go off. And then following that, my first full-time gig for Juliana's when I left the army was the warehouse, which was on Havelock Road. And that was about, I stayed there for about a year and a half, and then moved on to Scandals in the building which we are now in. It's called the Westin Hotel before that, and now it's the Swiss Hotel. And then it just went on from there. You know, I worked for the Juliana's group as a DJ, and then moved up in a promotion to the office to work in the operations department in 1991. But it kind of got boring, and I was quite glad the promotion came, but at that point in time, I think in the late 80s, from 86 onwards, I started discovering that house music was gaining a lot of prominence. And I thought that, or I perceived at that time that that would be the more recognized club sound for the future, but Singapore was not playing it. It was still stuck in a very Stock Aitken and Waterman, Rick Astley, Bananarama, Jason Donovan sort of phase, where a lot of the clubs would be playing that, and the club sound, you know, the whole Dead or Alive, You Spin Me Around like a record sort of thing. And I suppose I needed to travel, and I wasn't getting enough traveling with Juliana's, although I did travel quite a bit when I was with them, you know. So I decided to go back to putting DJing on the shelf for a while. I joined as a flight attendant for Singapore Airlines for about 5 years, from 1992 to 97, and traveling all around the world from there, and going to clubs, going to record shops, meeting people. I decided to come back into part-time DJing sort of around about 1995, right? So I would do a few sets at different bars or places, one of them being Neo Pharaoh's. Because one of the guys who used to work at Zouk when Zouk first opened in '91, Billy Wilcox, sort of asked me to come over and play with them, and I said no, I've already got a full-time job as a flight attendant, but you know, here am I buying all these dance records from all these record shops around the world. And he said, like, why don't you come over and spin some tunes? I said okay, and it ended up being quite a regular thing in Neo Pharaoh's for a while, and I was doing a lot of edits and my own remixes, which I would record at that point of time on mini disc. So I would bring these little remixes and play them off the mini disc and stuff like that. It became quite a thing for me because I was thinking that production would be the next step, and people started reacting quite well to that. So something deep inside kind of told me that there's a lot of unfinished business left. So I left the airlines in the end of '97, and then eventually went to work for Venom initially, and then following that, was asked to come work at this new club they were starting called Knox, on the Sultan Road, and that proved to be quite a good experience for me actually, because that was one of the clubs in Singapore that really cradled the underground sound in all respects. I mean, from house to techno to drum and bass to even abstract hip hop, broken beat jazz. I mean, they were doing something very positive, I felt, for music in Singapore at that time that unfortunately Zouk was not doing in total. But unfortunately, it didn't last very long. Knox lasted for at least about 2 years before it had to shut. Part of the fact was also Mohammed Sultan Road was being kind of too cluttered. A lot of bars were opening, different bars and everything. I suppose there were a lot of raids, police raids, a lot of violence along the streets, and people started clamping down eventually, and with the focus of attention being put on Clarke Quay, right? I think the government stopped issuing liquor licenses to a few clubs there. It eventually led to the demise of the whole street, sort of quieted it down a lot. So after I found out that Knox was closing when I was doing a small little tour of Stockholm, Sweden and Switzerland at that time. So I was kind of wondering where my next job was going to be, and along comes Zouk with the residency, which lasted for about 8 years. And following Zouk, which I felt I gave the best of my time to, I went over to Stereolab, which wasn't really my thing. I think I jumped out of it. My sole purpose for actually getting away from Zouk was to try and do some things on my own, to stand on my own feet. I think that jumping into the Stereolab residency at that time was a bit of a mistake. So eventually, I am doing now what I set out to do when I joined Zouk, and that is to try and get by on my own feet, to play different styles of music and not just house, in different venues.